Welcome back, everyone, to week 3 of the English 1510 Asynchronous Online Comp 1 at OCC. We're going into the third week here, folks, so a couple of things usually as the starting point of week 3, ending off of week 2, and some of the actual submissions of first assignment rounds. Now, a couple of quick things, as is the case with most semesters. I have students who did make all submissions. I have some who did not. I have students that did not submit forms at the opening of term or diagnostics. Remember to make sure that you in this course have gone through and reviewed in your content file, and you've read the syllabus and you understand very clearly the submission policies and late work down in that assignment file. When we're talking about these things, late work is not accepted, so making sure that we note these things. It is the student's responsibility who signs up in an asynchronous course to follow along with all of these different protocols and assignment schedules. I want to reiterate to everyone in the course, everyone in an asynchronous course that's online for my programs, anything Comp 1, Comp 2, research, no matter what the case may be, the course begins. Messaging takes place here through instant messaging in the platform. Make sure that you include your class, English 1510, and your section number. So this one listed here being used for this presentation as the example has the A1235. I have some A1210, A131232. I have different numbers on these, but you need to include those in that instant message at least the first few times corresponding with me, so that I have that listed and I can find you right in my class registry for those. We do have end grades coming up in all the courses, meaning that if you did not submit gradable work at this time, I will be noting that as an end grade for the course. If there have been no submissions of gradable work, you will be removed from roster. So make sure that you note these things, folks. These are student responsibility. And I did still having students that have sent email things. Again, the course messaging is through the platform here in Instant. So don't expect to get returns through those unless we have corresponded through here first and made those arrangements. Now, that aside, the majority of students seem to be following along just fine, doing the majority of the work and getting it done correctly with the guidelines. This week we had the opening of the memoir components and students submitted summaries and outlines. Now we're into week 3, so if we go down here into the course schedule, weeks 1 and 2, the overview videos have been moved down to their corresponding weeks, along with those instructions that remain there, so you can still review those at any time that you need to. And now here in week 3, we have already submitted, students in class have already submitted their summary and outline, which included downloading that form and filling out, removing any example statements that were there and filling in with your own and submitting. Now, I will be reviewing those and responding to those this week and next, but over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be working on one thing and one thing only, and that is making the draft of this paper. This is going to be the memoir in week 3. But we also have the discussion board number 2. So it's a component of this. This is going to be your review process at this stage. So remember this. With the diagnostics, I do feedback and a grade and make a tutoring recommendation from those from week 1. Class introductions, all students will see those grades being posted this week for all those things that were from week 1. Week 2, on these submissions of summary outline, you will then see the summary outline feedback get posted sometime this week or next. When I post this is also going to include a feedback file on there for the summary and outline portion. Most of you will also see that you got audio files in them. I can't do them for all of them, but I do them when I can. So I include an overview of what was right, what was wrong, and I make some suggestions on there. And if it's a submission that followed the directions and you filled in all the categories, you should be in good shape for me to explain exactly what fits and what doesn't and what can transfer right into a draft. During that time, I expect that students move to the drafting stage and begin drafting that paper. And the first thing you're going to do with that draft, and remember, this is going to be the week on drafting where I give you a grade that's for rubric response. So once these drafts are submitted, these are not feedback files, those are grade files, and you refer to the rubric. So you're going to write your rough draft following the directions in the Dropbox above, which I'll touch base on in just a moment. And you are also going to then take a copy of yours and submit it into, or even post it into your window there of the memoir discussion board. The objectives with the discussion board are to make sure that we get a peer review process going now, where we're all following the directions in accordance with the guidelines for our writing, the feedback that we individually get in response to those things, and what we know of the guidelines and requirements for the memoirs. I'm going to reiterate all throughout these next 2 weeks about this. The main thing about this memoir is that it has a complication that has to be resolved. That complication has to be the end of body paragraph 1, and the complication needs to be resolved in body paragraph 3. If you follow those directions, all of this should be very clear and make sense. If it's confusing to you, then you either missed the reading or the assignment or both. Discussion boards on these, all individual draft submissions and review of classmates are due by the 9th, but I want everyone submitted there as soon as they possibly can so that we can classmates can review one another's work. Once I do have all draft submissions into a Dropbox, that will be in the next week. We'll talk about those and review process. So this week, you got the memoir, start drafting. There's no draft due this week. It will be due next Sunday, but the draft into the discussion board is due by the 9th. Okay, that guarantees that you and your classmates have all submitted, and everyone has the opportunity to review those and get feedback from classmates before they actually have to do a rough draft and submit here. That will also give you the opportunity to take time to utilize the Academic Support Center that is up here under Student Services. Everyone following the submission process of the diagnostic, I am posting right now everyone's tutoring recommendations. Everyone has to do one session for the semester. It can be in person or online. You go through the Academic Support Center and follow the instructions there, and set up a session. Make sure that I get the actual confirmation form back so that I know you've done it. But you can utilize this as often as you need to. I make the tutoring recommendations based off of the diagnostics that you wrote. Most students in this class got a YTR, or in my classes right now, got a YTR 2 or 3, meaning that I recommend you utilize the tutoring services during the drafting stages. The 2 and the 3 refer to the degree to which you utilize it. If it's a 2, it's saying you use it once through the drafting stages. If it's a 3, it's to utilize it as often as possible, at least once or twice per drafting stage of each major assignment. Okay. Now, I can't force anyone to do those. That's a recommendation. The one that's required for the semester, everyone has to do. Having said that, if you know that at the sentence level you have issues, then you're going to want to utilize those on a weekly basis or drafting stage basis. Composition 1 in college, we're focused on content and arrangement of these different genres of writing, not sentence level grammar, mechanics, style, punctuation, and those sorts of things. In a 3-credit-hour composition course, that's not the focal point. Okay, so make sure that you understand those things, folks, and you are moving forward in accordance with what your needs are, in accordance with the requirements of the course and each individual assignment. All right? So going down here to the Dropbox that is assigned for the week, we have memoir rough draft. You'll see the due date there as the 15th. The memoir for the discussion board, availability ends on the 9th. So if we go to, we can click there, or we can go to discussion boards. The memoir one, I'm actually going to have that open today as this launches, so you will see the full instructions here. If I go right here to the course, excuse me, if I go up here to the upcoming events, it's already posted. So here I hit a course refresh, and I go back to the home, availability. I had it open up at 2 rather than at that time. So here we have the instructions on here. You're going to be reading through the overview. You're going to be making sure that you're posting your full paper to this forum. We have the opportunity here to both post our draft and review, we have to review at least one classmate. So in this setup here, you would read through the instructions, you start your own thread obviously, and you can either submit a Word document of it that your classmates can download and open for review. The easier thing typically with these is to read the overview and then actually just copy and paste yours into the framing of the page in your thread. The only thing there, folks, is if you do paste it in here, please go back and reformat your paragraphs, tab them back over if it doesn't carry over with your paste. Okay, so read through the instructions. You have to make sure that you're following the exact requirements for the actual memoir itself, and tell your classmate, I really prefer you don't just give them yes or no answers on these. Try to be as specific as you possibly can, but does the intro follow the general specific? And remember, it should have a lead-in thesis that suggests or foreshadows the complication but doesn't give it away. Does the thesis statement work as that lead-in? Is the clear complication at the end of body 1? Does body 2 offer advancement? Remember, for body 2, folks, that can just be your emotional and internal dialogue reaction you had to the problem. So if your complication is you snuck out with your parents' car, they didn't know, and then you hit a fire hydrant or something, that complication is obvious if everything comes to a full stop, because now you have to figure out how to resolve that before you can go home and life can go on. You have to be able to deal with this problem that you created. So body 2 could start simply along the lines of, at that moment I freaked out and thought of 20 different things. One thing was, is my father going to kill me? Number 2, is my mother going to kill me? All these different things, and you're saying your internal reaction. What could I do to resolve this? Then you end in that impasse. Then you go on to body 3. Does body 3 resolve the complication? Moral of the story, concise, doesn't match the messaging. Trying to look at things in terms of other components of it. If you do recognize grammar, mechanics, punctuation, style, you certainly can review that for a classmate. However, remember, folks, Comp 1, that's why we use the tutoring services with the ASC, right? So that's going to be that submission portion there. The rough draft is now what you're working on. You get 2 weeks to actually work on the rough draft. That's why we have the review process there. It also gives me time to give you feedback on your summary and outline. You're going to be producing a draft that's a minimum of 600 words. Remember, guys, the final only needs to be 3 pages roughly, into 4 maybe. I've seen very good 2.5 to 3 pages. It just is meeting the basic requirements. Read through the instructions on here. You're writing the draft as you would, MLA format, Times New Roman 12-point font. Make sure that all the parameters are met for the drafting stage. And once you submit, guys, remember on this, I will go through and post a grade for these as soon as possible, but it's not necessary on here to have that in order to move forward to final drafting. You got to have your classmates review, and you have to have my grade and feedback on the summary and outline. Okay? Once the final drafts of the memoir are submitted, which will be the week furthering after this one, after the 15th, when those are submitted, I will then do a full feedback report on the final draft, and that will give you an opportunity to do revisions on those. The memoir final draft will be the one that students can revise later on in the term. Okay? So memoir rough drafts, once you get those submitted by the 15th, those posted grades will be something that you'd go to the content file, review the rubric, and any corrections you need to make are based off of the grade you're given there and what it compares to on that rubric response. All right? So on these guys, again, you're working on week 3, discussion boards, you're writing the memoir into a draft, watching for feedback on the summary and outline, watch for your tutoring recommendation on diagnostics if you didn't already receive yours, and then make sure that you note this first portion is to get the draft composed, put it through into the discussion board so you can do a peer review of classmates, and then the actual rough draft will be due in 2 weeks on the 15th. All right, so that will be going in week 4, and then we'll be finishing up those discussion boards, and then we'll talk about final drafting stage. Final drafting stage will be due here in the 5th week, and we'll have some overlap of some instruction on rhetorical analysis there. All right, let me know if you got questions, and again, remember messaging through instant message here. Hope everyone's doing well. See you in a week.